Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. Presented by Carolina Lightweight. Come good with us. When the action begins in the studio, our referees for tonight's event are Elgato Azul and Carolina Real Streamers. For the viewers in attendance and Facebook and YouTube users around the world, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Live from the Elgato Azul TV studio in Louisville, Texas, it's time! What's up, slime lovers? My name's Chris, a.k.a. Elgato Azul, my partner in slime, Mr. Jamie Dunn.
What's up?
Carolina Lake Weights. Starting off the day with some technical difficulties.
It wouldn't be right, man, if everything went right.
I went in the house because we had bad Wi-Fi, and I noticed the maids, they'd been to the house to clean today, and they knocked the damn router behind the furniture. So,
man, hopefully
we good. We good. How's it
all
going?
Good
man?
Now, brother.
How's it going?
Man, doing good, man. Just been busy like always. Prepping for some shows, ready to go.
Yeah, y'all have got some busy stuff coming up.
Yeah, man, getting ready to hit the road to PA for a couple weeks.
So tell everybody what's going on in PA in case people are in the area and they want to come by.
Yeah, man, guys, we're getting ready to hit the road here in about a week and a half. So for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, for the Great American Outdoor Show, we're going to start the Northern Tour before we head to CatCon. And so if you're up in Harrisburg, come on by and see us and stop by and say hello. So we'll be there for about 2 weeks.
That's a giant show, right?
Yes, sir. Last year they said 250,000 come through the doors up there last year.
Now that's a fishing show.
Yes, sir. It's a hunting, fishing show. They said it's massive. So if y'all guys haven't checked it out, go and look at some of the YouTube videos. Man, it is elbow to elbow up there. And hopefully we'll have some good weather.
250,000 people.
Yes, sir.
You better bring some hand sanitizer for Jeez. You're going to be. Don't be bringing that shit to CatCon, bro.
That's it, man. We're going to start that Northern Tour, and then here we go to CatCon after that.
Don't be bringing that sickness to CatCon.
Yeah, I told Rebecca, I said, next year we're just going to have a Carolina Lake Weights World Tour. So that's what everybody's wanting, man. They want us to come to all kinds of different cities and states. And so we're going to try. We're already starting to book for next year already.
Let's run through here, see how all's with us tonight. I can look over here on Facebook. We got Leland Loy. What's up, Lee? We got Doug Smith, Jeff P. Stinkin, Trent Hall. Welcome in, boys. Over here on YouTube side, we got Carolina Lake Weights. We got my boy Killer B out there laying waste to the Texas lakes. Got Eagle Eyes Tienda putting the smackdown on them out in West Texas and Central Texas. Operation Vets with Nets providing real therapy. Rich was out fishing with Dieter this past weekend. Looked like they had a good time. Caught a bunch of good fish. Lewis Parker, another Central Texas boy. Paul Story, welcome in, Paul. How you doing, buddy? Dink over stink. He's an Okie, but that's all right. We'll forgive him for that. Micah Burkhart, King of Tennessee. Average Joe Catfishing, from East Tennessee. What's up from East Tennessee? We got some Tennessee boys in the house. Jeff Martin, right here from North Texas. Welcome in, Jeffrey. Catfish Junkie, believe he's in Louisiana. Trent Hall. Chris Garcia. What's up, Chris? Another Texas boy. And we got Texas locked down in here tonight.
I ain't lying.
How's everybody doing?
I tell you what, brother, I don't know about you, but I'm seeing some of our CLW family catching some monsters here, man.
Oh man, everybody on the team's freaking knocking them dead.
I ain't lying, man. Ricky Garza, his daughter out there doing it to it. All of our guys, man, they have been really catching some nice fish, and I want to say congratulations. You know, I saw Micah catching some good ones.
Yeah.
I mean, just everybody in general, man. So congratulations, y'all. Y'all are definitely doing some work, that's for sure.
It's that time of year, man. If you're a trophy catfisherman, you better get your tail out on the water because it's time to look good.
I wish I
Time
could be
to feel
fishing.
good. Time to hug some giants.
I've got that fishing fever.
Billy Bever's watching. Doug says he's January 25th is the opening tournament for he's the new owner in the North Alabama Catfish Trail. So come on out. Come fish with your boy Doug. So Michael Perriman's watching. Dan Weldon, what's up, Danny boy? Another Texas boy. And Johnny Fuentes. So Johnny's out there. He fished Levon as well. So
yep. Got cross-eyed catfishing from what's up from Virginia.
Yeah, Johnny, the wind was pretty good. Saturday on Levon, we had some rollers coming over the back. I had to really slow down to catch fish. It was a weird bite. But once I figured them out, we started putting them in the boat pretty consistently. It's presentation is key, so that's a perfect show for it tonight because we've had to change up our presentation just about every trip in order to do well. Brian Adams, welcome in. Justin Cox, welcome. Tommy Anderson, welcome.
You know, Chris, that's a good show for tonight, man, this presentation. I've been seeing some talk, some chatter here and there on Facebook about certain things, you know, colors, rigs, and presentations and different things that a lot of people, you know, has been using. And, you know, I'm happy that there used to be not as much stuff in, you know, in the catfishing world. And now the book is just wide open, you know, in different techniques, different rigs, different presentations that everybody's doing. And, you know, it makes it so much more interesting when you see a lot of different stuff.
So what is presentation? Presentation is how you're presenting your bait to a fish. If you're dragging, it's how fast, what direction are you bringing it to them? How high up off the bottom are you? What cut of bait are you using? Why are you using that why are they preferring this cut of bait this day over this other cut of bait that worked the day before? Size going up one day, maybe going a little bit smaller on another day. There is no just one set way that's going to work every time. That's what makes catfishing, trophy catfishing, so difficult.
And then, Chris, on top of that, man, you throw in there that, you know, some days rattles work. Some days they might not work as much. Some days louder rattles work. Some days quieter rattles, you know, work. So it's all kinds of things you've got to put together and know when and how to put it together to fit certain days that you're fishing. And that's another big thing, too.
Trent said, "Oh, is this the show we discuss different shades of shad?" A little bit. That's definitely part of presentation is bait choice. I know this time of year for us, bait size is more important than bait choice. Sometimes, you know, we're going really big on baits most days, and certain days we shrink them down a little bit. So why would you shrink them down? You know, you may have a front hitting that day. Everything's laying in the mud. They just don't want to chase after something big. They rather just get a little snack. They may not be stuffing themselves full. Some days you just want to go to the kitchen and get you a little snack out of the fridge or out of the pantry, and certain days are just that way. Certain days you're real hungry, you want to eat a giant meal and go lay down and watch the game. So fish are similar in nature, and figuring out what they want on that particular day is what I believe is probably the most overlooked thing in catfishing is presentation. Presentation is what's going to set you apart from the 10 other boats that are right next to you that are catching a couple here and there. With the right presentation, you'll catch 5, 10 times as much as the guy next to you. So Jeff says some days they like chicken breasts and some days they want chicken wings. My son likes chicken wings every day. So
that's what I'm saying.
Ray says, hey, everybody. Welcome in, Ray. Smackdown Catfishing's watching. Austin James Center, Chris Moody, Brian Henry. Welcome in, boys. Appreciate everybody stopping in, checking us out for a little bit.
Yep. Garfish Addiction said, you make them eat every trip, brother. I know some days it's a beating.
Some days it is a beating.
Yep.
Trying to figure out what's going to actually get them to bite that day is the trick. I mean, that's the magic trick you're trying to figure out every trip. I had a guy that was asking me today, can I come fishing so I can learn how you're catching all these giant fish every trip? I told him, well, you're not going to learn how to catch giant fish every trip in one trip, because what I'm doing this week, I'm going to do completely different next week, depending on all the different variables that are going to go into the next trip. It's wind direction. How big of a temperature change have we had? Are the fish active? Do we have wind at all? If there's no wind, you may need to move directly over structure. If you got wind, you might be out on the flat. This year's been weird. Every angler I talk to is like, man, what's going on with the fish this year? Yep. So they're confused. I'm still catching fish. Our big baits still have eggs in them. Guys that are cleaning eater catfish got eggs in them. I think fish are confused.
Well, Chris, that leads me up, man. You were just talking about some days wind, some days no wind. Okay, you get on the way to the lake. Before you ever do that, you're already looking at your weather forecast. When you leave your house, you pretty much know how you're going to pretty much fish it that day, correct?
Correct. So this time of year, after big cold fronts, you're going to have maybe the day of the front. They may be in a river channel buried down or something, but as you get away from that cold front, 2, 3, 4 days, fish are going to be out on the flats. And if you've got wind, they're going to be feeding on the flats. Now, when the wind dies, that's where a lot of guys have problems.
Yeah. When
the wind dies, I had a 2-fish day. How did you freaking catch 20 fish? And I only caught 2. If the wind dies, I tell guys, when the wind dies, get off of the flats, because those fish, not always, but typically they lay down in the mud and they lock up. They're done. But if you got a piece of structure that's around that has fish on it, fish on structure, like a ridge, a shoreline contour, a levee, a hump, fish on structure are going to be more willing to bite when there's no wind or when most of the fish in the lake are locked up. They're sitting on ambush structure. They're waiting for something just to come by and get an easy meal. So that's one thing I can tell you guys. That's something that I do almost instantaneously when the wind dies. I move to a piece of structure that's very close to where I've been fishing. And it'll work 95% of the time. You'll still be able to do well. presenting bait on structure to fish that are waiting to ambush where all the other fish have locked up. Guys kept calling me constantly, man, look at my graph. Look at my graph. Look at all these fish. I'm not catching them. I'm like, and I say, well, what's the wind like? They're like, the wind died. Well, look on your topography map and find you a piece of structure that's real close to where you're at. And even if you're not marking a ton of fish on it, fish it, because the ones that are on there are going to be more willing to bite. And I can guarantee you that will freaking catch you 5 to 10 times as many fish as what you'll catch fishing that flat with fish all over it. They just
and Chris, you know that because you studied that lake. You put that work in, that time in on that
lake. It's every lake I fish. I fish a bunch of different fish.
Mm-hmm.
The formula works. Every lake's a little bit different, but fish behavior is the same from lake to lake. The variables from lake to lake usually is pattern, fish pattern, bait pattern. Is it a deep lake with striper? That's going to pattern different than a lake with a bunch of timber or with, crappie and bluegill as a primary bait source. Or where I've been fishing, the big fish I've been catching, there ain't any bait around. It's all baby carp. And I mean 3,000 acres of baby carp with barely any bait around. Most guys come, they're like, man, ain't any bait here. I'm like, yeah, but look at all the fish.
Yeah.
Go down there where all the bait is, and all you're going to mark are dinks. They're like, I noticed you passed up all the bait, came up here. Like, yeah, this is where all the big ones are. So
and Chris, you put your time in, man. You've done your study. You've done your homework. That's just like you just said. Kind of how you're going to attack a certain lake certain days, depending on the weather pattern. That's because of the homework that you've done, the time that you put in.
Homework. I've fished with some of the best anglers in the state for the last 20 years. I've been trophy catfishing almost every week since I was probably 20 years old. I'm 50 now, so 30 years of doing this every week. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've learned the hard way by going out and getting my ass kicked. And then, you see something that actually try some different things. That's another thing see all these guys saying, you don't need this and you don't need that. Man, don't freaking believe them. If you want to try something different that you might think is going to give you an edge, try it. If it works for you, you'll build some confidence in it. And that's confidence is key. So that's how you're going to build confidence off success. Yeah. Trying different things. So when you're first starting, you might need to try every cut of bait. 3 different varieties of bait, till it works for you. You find the success, and then you're going to have confidence in what you're doing. I've done it. So I don't. The testing and all that, I just go do what's worked.
And that's the point, too, that I want to make to a lot of anglers that's just beginning. Guys, there's going to be days you're going to get your ass kicked. I'm serious. There's going to be days that you're going to say, man, what am I doing so wrong? I promise you, the more time, the more study, the more that you talk with people, the better it's going to get. You just got to have that time. And not only that, knowing your setup on your rods. You like me, I've got rods set up different ways. I'm going to find out which way is going to work best. Learning those different techniques, not just having the same identical thing that, you got, say if you got 10 rods, you got everything identical and you're not getting no bites. Hell, you don't know if that, other things is working better than those because you're using the same identical things. But guys, hang in there. Just like watching the show, learning different techniques that Chris, talks about, I talk about, it gets frustrating.
Something works for me doesn't mean you have to do it that way. Just because something works for Jamie doesn't mean you got to do it that way. But, you might want to try it And if it works for you, you'll build some confidence in doing that. I see a lot of guys say, yeah, elephants eat peanuts, so they fish with small baits and they catch some big fish. I prefer to use baits that's going to outsize small fish. I'm not saying their way's wrong. I'm just saying that's the way I do it. It works for me. Some guys like to drag, some guys like to anchor. You can do just as well either way. It's some days anchoring's preferred, some days dragging's preferred. And really find what works for you and hone that in, and then add layers to it. So
that's it. That's very true, man. And presentation is everything in fishing. I'm telling you guys, there's some daggone good anglers out there that's catching 100, 60, 70, 80, 90-pound fish all the time. But when you stop and look at those guys that's catching these trophy-sized fish, I couldn't tell you probably how many hours of fishing, studying different techniques that these guys have done. So,
listen, anybody can catch a big fish.
Yep.
My freaking 9-year-old catches giant fish. Mm-hmm. Anybody can do it. It's just how bad do you want? Success is going to be determined about how bad do you want to do it? How much homework do you want to put in? How much effort do you want to put into this thing? Because the guy I was talking to today, I said, it just doesn't happen overnight. I could show you exactly what I did this past weekend. Come fish with me. But you go back there and try to do that exact same crap next weekend, you won't catch a damn fish. You got to be able to understand what's going on and present your baits the way that they're going to want it next weekend when after front's on the way, or one just passed through, or water temp dropped 6 degrees, or Jeff said he got bait last weekend, and he said one throw and he had all he needed, and it was right where I told him it was going to be.
Nice.
And how did I know it was going to be there? I got a good idea of bait migration, fish migration, where it's going to be in the lake, certain time of year, after fronts, where they're going to be located. I can point it out and tell you, all right, fish are probably going to be right here. And, it's not rocket science, but there is a lot of information that you got to learn in order to do all that. And it doesn't happen overnight. So you got to put in the work, boys. You got to put in the work.
Yeah, that's the number one thing. Put in the work, put in the time, and be willing to learn.
Yeah, the learning never ends. Learning never ends. I don't care who you are. The way you fish this year, you will not be fishing that same way in 5 years. You're going to be fishing completely different. It's an evolution. Even if you think you're great now, in 5 years, you'll look back and say, man, I would destroy that angler I was 5 years ago.
And that's it. And not only that, electronics, man, is going to be unbelievable within the next 2, 3, 4 years. Already with electronics, it's just gone crazy. That's another learning curve. I mean,
I think electronics has really helped with presentation. It's a show about presentation.
Yeah,
I use my electronics to determine how I'm going to present my bait on that particular day. How are they orienting to this levee? Are they on this levee? Are they on top of this levee? Are they off to the side of the levee? And if it's windy, are they all pointed into the wind? If they are, I'm going to present my baits the way that they want it. How do they want it? Well, if it's windy, they're all facing into the wind. They like the bait coming to them. That's going to help you determine your presentation for the day. If the wind dies, I'm going to move directly over that levee and get on that piece of ambush structure. And I'm going to present my baits as fish coming up over that piece of structure where catfish are waiting to ambush.
That's right.
And guys, presentation is probably the biggest thing that will up your game over anything. I mean, obviously you got to be able to locate the fish. But
Yeah.
once you're able to locate fish and you get pretty decent on the graph and you understand all that, the next big hurdle for most guys is presentation. You guys know that fish with me or fish by me know I've got a flotilla of boats that follow me around whatever lake I'm on. It's crazy. And at the end of the day, they're like, how'd you do? I heard you hooting and hollering. I'm like, well, we did pretty good. How'd y'all do? They're like, well, we got a couple 20s and a 30. I'm like, yeah, I don't understand, it's presentation.
Yeah.
It's all presentation, and that's it. That's the magic.
And that's just like, I tell all the guys on the river around right around here where we live, we've got countless hours of time on these rivers around here, man. I can almost tell you tomorrow, looking at the weather, where I'm going to probably go, where I'm probably going to fish because of the certain weather, that we're having right now. And probably what I'm going to be using, and probably the size of my leaders that I'll be using tomorrow.
I would agree with that. The only time that's really a crapshoot and got to go look a lot is usually during transition time, transition, spring transition, when fish are moved, they won't be in the same area for very long. And even now, fish move. When I fish 2 days in a row, they'll be 1.5 miles from where they were the day before.
That's it.
They move up and down, but they stay in a general area. And just like a hound dog them when they're, if you know that they're going to be in a certain section, generally you can hound dog them. You've been doing this a long time.
Yeah. And I can tell you, Chris, I'm now, and we talked about this not too long ago. It used to be I didn't have to travel that far. Now I'm traveling probably 20, 25 miles on some of these rivers to just get to the first place where I know that they're going to be because of the weather's been so different and the river is so different. Also, that river changes a lot, man, especially after floods and stuff. And then you got to relearn it again. Okay, where's these new sandbars? Where's the new banks that's eat out? Where's the new structure at? And now I'm actually traveling that far now because I've learned, okay, the bigger fish has actually moved to these areas.
Yeah, guys are like, I've never seen it like this. I'm like, well, I've seen it like this. It's just not normal. A lot of these patterns, it's a 5-year pattern. So you may not see the scenario for 5 years. 5 years ago, you might not have known what to do, but you spent the whole day looking. And then at the end of the day, you figured a little something out. Well, here it is 5 years later, you know exactly what to do. If you're able to file all that stuff away, that mountain of knowledge of getting your ass kicked for, year after, it's been a long time I've been doing this. I've got my ass kicked plenty of times. But, here I am turning 50 and I don't take ass whippings too damn often. You know what I'm saying? I've done it. I've got my tail whooped enough now where it's just a lot of this stuff becomes second nature. You just know what to do.
Yep. And especially this year with so many different cold fronts that we're having, man, all these Arctic blasts, especially here on the East Coast, the cold weather we're getting now, man, we haven't seen this in a while. So our pattern has totally changed as far as fishing wise this year.
I'd agree.
And we've talked about, man, this year's been so much difference. Man, look at the Arctic blasts that we're getting week after week, 1 to 2. It's just driving these fish in so many different locations that normally you wouldn't have to worry about that.
So and Trinity says this time of year, once he gets on a pattern, he can usually follow the fish pretty close and know pretty close where the big fish are. Fish are grouped up a lot better this time of year. They do move together. It's not like when I say grouped up, they're not like this. They're in acres and acres and acres.
Yeah.
Grouped up group doesn't mean you're going to see 30 fish swimming together. It means you're going to see, when you're on your side image, you may see 3 big fish. And then when you move again, you'll see, and those fish are off your screen, you may see 3 more big fish. So every 100, 200 feet, there's a couple of 2, 3 good fish. And that's what I'm looking for. And so they move from day to day. I've been noticing this year they've been moving about a mile per day. So I'll fish one day, the next day, I know they're there. I'm like, these fish are gone, but I know they're somewhere around here. Did they move up the lake? Did they move down the lake? Did they move over there to that piece of structure, or did they move over there to that piece of structure? So
Chris was that
so shallow coming up pre-spawn.
Yeah.
So pre-spawn, they begin to migrate towards their spawning habitat. The bigger fish are going to start moving up there. They start just kind of getting in the right area. When the water temp starts getting fairly close, they start moving up into their areas. Now, they may not be right up in that shallow 8 foot of water or whatever they like to spawn in, but they'll be where they can run up into it, because the bigger fish typically going to go first, Chris. They pick the prime real estate and they get in there first. And then the smaller ones follow. And that's what's making them move up in there. They move up. A lot of the other thing that will move them up right before spawn is there's the shad. The shad move up shallow and spawn. So the catfish go in, feed up real heavy before they go into spawn. So the threadfin spawn happens, gizzard shad spawn happens, and then after that, the catfish move up into their spawning areas. So,
Chris, right now, your presentation on your rods, how much are they changing week by week, or are you pretty much using the exact same style right now as far as
for what?
For your rigs on your poles?
I use a variety of rigs. And the reason I do is basically for bait size. I've got rigs that are made for giant baits. I run big baits this time of year for the most part, but I do put on some smaller fillet type stuff or body pieces that are, I call that a small bait this time of year. Hand sized bait, small for me. That's, if I'm moving down to hand sized baits, it's because the big fish aren't wanting to play too good. And sometimes you got to downsize just to catch fish. But typically I'm running bigger baits. I'm presenting baits that are going to look natural when I'm dragging. I'm not a big chunk guy. I chunked them up for a long time, but then I started fishing with some guys that were a lot better than me, and they're like, man, you need to get your presentation right. If you're going to be doing this, you're going to up your big fish by if you can get that bait looking more natural. So, in a lake, catfish aren't typically eating dead fish. Blue cats, they're eating live fish for the most part. You don't see a ton of dead stuff in the lake. What they do like is things that are injured. So they'll get around game fish that are feeding, that are injuring things. For instance, where I've been, there's gar eating carp, baby carp. So there's a lot of injured baby carp up where I've been fishing. And the giant catfish have been up in there just, man, thick. Y'all seen what we've been doing. It's insane.
Yeah.
Hardly any bait around. It's all carp. Now, this past weekend's the first time I've fished in damn near 2 months around the bait pile. And there was fish there. They weren't in there thick like when we were fishing around the carp, but it's presentation. So when you're using a whole bait, you're presenting that bait. It's dead. But when you're dragging, you're presenting that bait like it's
Still
injured,
alive.
like it's
Injured.
injured, about to die. And that's the beauty of dragging. Whereas if you're just anchored and there's no current, that thing's just sitting there. You're needing a fish that's moving around scavenging. Whereas a lot of times big blue, especially in the winter, they're not swimming all over feeding. They're laying there waiting for something to come to them. And when you present the right cut that's a little looks injured and you get it right in front of their face, they'll just grab it. They'll open up and they'll just suck that thing down. So,
yep. Chris, I got a question. What water temps typically trigger spawning activity, or is it calendar based like deer rut?
Okay, it's mutual. There's a variety of things. The length of the day is one factor. Okay, they know when the day starts becoming longer, that's going to be one thing that's going to be an influencing factor. It doesn't matter what species of fish. In the spring, the days are getting longer. There's an internal clock in them that says, all right, the days are getting longer. Even though we've had these cold fronts, the fish knows the days are getting longer. There is no set temperature that they are all going to spawn. If you got a colder spring, they may hold off for a little bit, but eventually they're going to say, we got to get this done. And they'll go ahead and move up in a little bit cooler water and do their thing. So day length is one, water temperature is one. When you start getting water temps up in the mid 70s, you're about done.
Yeah.
You're about done. So the shad start spawning around 70 degrees. And then after that, we start having bright, warm, sunny days, and it could be a week, and the lake warms up. Fish gonna move up into that warm water and start doing their thing. So
that's it.
Mark said he got him a 50-pounder PB today while they were reeling up. Good job, man.
Heck yeah. Congratulations on that.
Trinity said they've had a lot of rain and the bait is running up the creek as the water comes up because that water warms up quicker. There's two things. The water warms up quicker and shad like current. So they run against the current. I learned that at a real young age. I used to go fish a lot of floodgates, and we would go to Lake Possum Kingdom, which was the world record freshwater striper lake at the time. And there was some guys fishing below the dam, and they were catching these giant river shad and hooking them. And then they would turn them loose with the balloon, and that shad would just swim against the current all the way up to that dam. And we just hang on and wait. Giant striper, 30-pounders, pretty regularly. That fishery's been destroyed. They ruined that power production there, so you can't catch them like that anymore. But shad like current. So anytime there's current, that's another thing. If you're looking for bait, you got a fishery that's got some current coming into it from a power plant outlet or a creek or anything. There's going to always be bait and fish sitting in that right around where that current is or right next to that current. So
City Fish coming in with that $20, Chris. Thank you so much, my friend.
Appreciate you, Jason. Appreciate you, buddy. Hope y'all get on them, buddy. Hope you get on them. I know you're back in town from the oil rig, so.
Yeah, I see. We've been talking to him a little bit over there. Man, excited about being back home.
Gordon David Phillips says carp's his second favorite bait, and I catch a ton of big fish around carp. I'll tell you right now, they love them. There's more than one pattern in a lake, and I never used to fish the carp / gar pattern. I just was always told to move away from it and go get around all the shad. And I've found that's actually not, for about about half the year, I'm not even around the shad anymore. I'm around the carp. More and more, I'm around the carp for really big fish. It's eye-opening to see the difference between a guy fishing the same lake, catching big fish down by where the shad are, to what we're doing up by the carp, and usually destroying those guys. So,
Chris, Justin was saying, you gonna fish Saturday? It's gonna be brutal.
I might take off Friday. I'm thinking I might take off Friday just to get some fishing in, because we got some nasty weather coming. Big wind, super cold weekend, 20-degree nights, 30-degree days. Big wind. And now I will fish it, guys. I'm not afraid to fish it, but if I got an opportunity to fish right before that hits, I'm going to pick that rather than the day that a front like that hits. Can be devastatingly brutal.
That
Fishing,
sounds brutal.
fishing fish can really lock up.
Yeah.
The day the front's hitting. Now, I've had some epic days the day that front hits, but I've also had a lot more bad days the day that front is hitting. So,
And Chris, somebody's just starting out, man. What kind of advice would you tell them, as far as getting prepped for something like that? What would you tell them guys?
well, one of the main things I do is I bring a change of clothes on a day like that, in case you go into the water.
Yeah.
And you're out there in high wind and 30-degree day, 20-degree in the morning, you get wet. I don't care. Even if you can get back to your boat, back to the ramp in 10 minutes. In that 10 minutes, you can get hypothermia. So I'd say first thing think about is safety. In a high wind, 30-degree day is safety. All of us are a little bit crazy and we put our life on the line fishing some of these conditions, but in the cold, it's just a little bit different, because you go in the lake, 30-degree temps, big wind, and you get hypothermia. You start making some dumb decisions. A lot of guys that get hypothermia end up killing themselves. So,
and that leads me to my point, guys. Definitely this time of year. We've heard some stories about some stuff that's already happened this year. Take that extra time, prep your boat for safety. Clothes, like Chris was saying.
Bring extra clothes, bring some extra. If you think what you're bringing is warm enough, go ahead and bring some extra stuff. Bring it some extra gloves. I got like 3 or 4 pairs of gloves I bring on the boat, because they get wet, and your hands get wet or your feet get wet. It's a miserable day. Who wants to go home? A lot of us just rather sit there and be miserable. But you're thinking, man, if I just would have brought a second pair of gloves, I wouldn't be so damn miserable out here all day. So,
yep. That's one thing I'm gonna do, man. Is I'm gonna prep my boat before I do anything. Make sure my life vest, make sure my float coats, all the stuff that you're gonna need is properly in its place where you can easily. That's another thing, guys. I see people do all the time. They get in their boats. They get used to putting stuff on top of stuff. When you start putting a lot of things on top of your safety vest and stuff like that, man, make time this time of year, especially. I know it's good to do year round, but this time of year, because the water temperature, anything can happen that quick. Make sure you can get to your life vest, guys, or put it on.
Tommy said there was a boat on Lavon rescuing yesterday. Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, dive boat too.
Yep.
Which means it's not a rescue. Yep. I don't know if what they were looking for, but usually it's not good. I don't know. I never heard the outcome. I don't generally follow that a whole lot, because it sticks with you.
Yep.
Douglas Askew says he's putting in a diesel heater. Gets cold in eastern North Carolina. Hell, it gets cold in Texas.
You know, I've been talking about putting a full enclosure on the boat, man, but we just haven't had the time to do it. But I see these guys, man, with the full enclosures, and I'm like, damn, that looks good.
Yeah.
With the heaters and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that does look pretty good, doesn't it? We just hang out in the cold, put on layers, layer up.
Yeah, Thomas, 72 on your boat this past weekend. Man, brother, I'm going to have to go fish with you until wintertime's over. Yeah, them boys had a tournament this past
Here's
weekend.
another thing I can tell you, guys. In the morning, when you're messing with your bait, don't freeze your hands out the very first thing in the morning, because unless you got, bring something that you can warm back up, hand heater or something like that, hot pockets or whatever. And if you've already got your bait, I suggest go ahead and getting it cut up the night before, so that the very first thing you're doing in the morning is not freezing your hands out. And then start getting into the fish, and now you're catching fish and you can't ever get warmed back up. It'll keep you from getting sick. It'll keep you from being miserable. That's something that I've been doing. Texas, guys, Texas is a hot state, but when it gets cold, it gets freaking cold. And it's that moist, like Killer B said, that moist Gulf moisture cold.
Yep.
It'll freeze you out with big wind. We just don't get a whole lot of it, but when we get it, it's freaking bad.
Yeah, Rich said that's why he asked everybody who's interested in neoprene gloves.
I got multiple pairs of neoprene gloves. I've got some Arctic, what are they? Arctic ice neoprene gloves. I got some last year that were Cast King. Those work pretty good too. Keep multiple pairs of Arctic gloves. I keep multiple pairs of fish fighting gloves. I switch them all out throughout the day, depending on what the temperature is. Mosley says, "What's up, guys? Hope all is well."
What's up, brother? Yeah, this is the time of year, man, for sure, guys. We're talking about your bibs and talking about different clothing also. Preparation and stuff is key. And I've got a suit. It's a flotation device, the whole suit. And that's it. This time of year, man, I'm gonna tell you, if you hit that water, it ain't gonna take long for hypothermia to set in. So definitely, I see where Mosley was saying. He talking about his Wind Rider or PC Fun suits that he's got. Arctic armor, yep. Layers and layers.
I like to layer up because a lot of times it's 18 degrees in the morning and 38, 45 degrees in the afternoon. There is no one layer of clothes that's going to keep you comfortable in that. I'll peel out. And if even when it's super cold, we hammer fish. And so when we're really on them, if I get hot, man, and I don't like being all sweaty in a big bunch of thick ass clothes. So if you're really on them good, which this time of year, man, we're freaking laying waste to them. You're fired up. You got adrenaline pumping. I layer so I can peel out of a layer and, stay comfortable. I like to be comfortable when I'm fishing. People, I don't know how many calls I got, and they're like, you're out there? I'm like, yeah, I'm out here. I can't believe you're out there. It's 18 degrees. I'm like, people snow ski. What's the freaking difference?
That's it.
You gear up, man. It's just.
I'm not going to let no weather slow me down from going fishing now. I mean, if you're having a hurricane.
Ramp, I'm like, well, once I got here, the ramp was, 2 boats put in before me. I just moved over.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they pulled out, it froze over, and I just moved over to the spot that wasn't wet, and it wasn't frozen over. I didn't have any problem. I brought salt. I brought sand. I was fishing, even if the ramp was iced over. I was fishing.
Chris was asking, think that Sea Arc Easy Cat be good drifting in them 15-mile wind on Levon, water coming
Well,
in back.
Levon is not as bad as, say, Texoma, Chris. 15-mile-an-hour wind out of the south on Levon's not too bad. 15-mile-an-hour wind out of the north or out of the, if you're on the north end of Levon, it's different. I went up there and looked after my trip Saturday. I went north just because I wanted to add that information to my database, so I went north. But boy, there was giant rollers up there on the north end because there's 8 miles of lake to build up those waves. So it depends on what section you're in. If you're fishing that south end and you got a south wind, it's not going to be too bad.
Chris, I can definitely tell you because I've got a Sea Arc Pro Cat 240. Go ahead and get ready to buy you a set of those wave whackers to put on the back of that boat just for that purpose with the water coming.
Hey, I had rollers coming over my boat Saturday, and I mean, it's just normal. I got 2 pumps. I got 2 bilge pumps, so they were working. I could imagine if it got real hairy real fast and you were in a low-sided boat like that, it could get dangerous quick.
Yeah, that's why I invested in a set of those, and it's the best investment I ever made for my Sea Arc.
I tell a lot of guys in Texas that, that they get one and they're like, man, I didn't realize I'm not going to be able to fish a lot. We got big wind, big waves here. So, Matt, I'm sending you some good luck, bro.
Yes, sir. Good luck to you, brother.
I'll send you some good luck. I'm going to try to get out. I'm probably going to try to get out Friday. Try to catch something giant before this big front hits.
Sounds like it's going to be a heck of a front too, Chris. I mean, they say this, looking at some of the coldest weather still to come that we've had this year.
All I can say is once it passes, or it looks to be an extended type deal. So 3rd, 4th day of it's going to be some insanely good fishing if you can get out there and you got the balls to fish it. I saw a lot of guys saying, oh, yeah, the cold front's coming. Fishing's about to get real slow for extended time. I'm like, we got 20-degree temps. I mean, I'm going to go hammer them.
Yep.
I don't know what that's not what I'm used to happening after a big cold front. I'm used to freaking laying waste to them. So
I can tell you, man, if I wasn't prepping for these shows, rain, sleet, snow, or shine, I would definitely be fishing.
My boy Bill, he's out in the rollers. He fishes the rollers in a kayak.
Yep, he's got me beat. I'm not doing it.
Crazy. But I think it's awesome, man.
Yes, sir.
I think it's badass, Bill.
I bet that does get pretty wild.
Be out there tomorrow. Hopefully, you can get some good bait. Spot might be too shallow. Well, I've been getting bait out 30, 40, 35, 40 feet. That's where I've also been fishing. Bait is piled up in 40 feet, 35, 40 feet right now.
Chris, did you see Tommy's am I wasting my time out here on the little ridge? I don't know.
Where is he? Tommy
Anderson over on Facebook.
He's at Little Ridge. You can catch him there at Little Ridge. So what wind? I don't know what the wind direction. I don't pay attention to the wind a whole lot until I know I'm going to fish. So I don't know what the wind direction or anything is today. Tommy, if it's out of the south, you're going to be out closer onto that point. with the wind blowing in your face. If it's the north wind, you're going to move on to the north side of it where the wind's blowing into your face. So there's fish there. I caught fish. I was stone's throw from the shore when I caught fish Saturday. They're there. They're definitely there. They're actually piled up pretty thick on that shoreline. You might have to sling your baits out there a ways, but they're there. I got way behind. Let me get caught up.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get caught up here too, Chris.
All right, Texas fishing addiction.
Trent said ain't no winds today.
That's why Texas fishing addiction bought the Pure Bay 24. He don't mess around. That's my boy Chris Moody. He guides down in Central Texas. We've had him on the show. He's Texas gar fishing addiction. Badass angler, can catch any fish in the lake. Known Chris for it's been a while. Known him from the old Texas fishing forum days.
Lewis, if you want to send one of those for the Sea Arc, I'll definitely show them off and show everybody, how they block the wind and, keep you a lot warmer.
Nathan Lorick says he's going to Texoma Friday. Good luck. I imagine if you can find where they're at, which that's the trick on that.
Yeah,
if you can find where they're at, they should be biting hard and heavy pre-front because this is going to be a nasty long front. And those fish know what's coming. So I got a feeling they're going to feed hard and heavy because they know they're probably not going to eat a whole lot for 2 or 3 days. So Trent says he's going Saturday, no choice. Well, cat fishermen are crazy.
That's what I'm talking about.
You can't catch them sitting on the couch. And Trent, one of my best trips last year was day of the polar front. So who knows? I mean, you never know till you go. My buddy's like, you're going with 35-mile-an-hour wind hitting? Like, what? And I was out there with 5-foot rollers coming over the back, swamping the back of the boat. And my friends are like, are you all right? I'm like, well, physically I'm all right, but mentally I'm probably not. But I'm here and I'm freaking slaying them. We smoked them that day.
That's it.
Okay, I'm caught up. I'm getting caught up now. Tommy Anderson. Am I wasting my time on Little?
Yeah,
out here on Little Ridge.
Chris, I've got one for you here. How does bait presentation change between trolling and anchoring?
Well, I think anchoring bait size is probably not as important as for big fish because fish are coming to your bait and eating it. They're in more of a scavenger type mode. They're just, they're moving through an area and they're just kind of scavenging what's in there. Whereas when you're bringing fish, like when you're dragging, you're bringing it to them. And a lot of times fish are ambushing their prey. They're not seeking it out and attacking it. They're waiting for it to come to them. So when you're dragging, if you're bringing them something that looks injured and it's a good sized bait, because this time of year that fish are lethargic, big fish want an easy bait or an easy meal. They don't want to have to chase a bunch of little fish all day.
Yeah.
They'd rather eat something with size. And if you can give them that something with size that looks injured, that's the difference in dragging between dragging and anchoring. Guys all say, man, when it gets cold, I just anchor. I'm like, they're like, what are you anchoring? I'm like, no, I'm dragging. You just, things are a little different. And you will have to hook up most of your fish. I would say out of 5 trips, you may only have 1 day out of 5 where the fish all hook themselves that day. But most of the time you're hooking them you're getting them hooked up. Fish are just kind of, as that thing's coming by, they just open their mouth, inhale it, and then clamp down on it. And you're starting to drag them, and they start kind of doing this, trying to injure that bait that's clamped down. And you got to wait till that head's turned, and then you crank down on them. I think we talked about that last show. Using big baits, it can be tricky catching them. A lot of guys that are fishing around me like, man, we got pecked to death today. I'm like, we smoked them, but I think what you thought was just fish pecking were actually big fish. You just not accustomed to understanding how to hook them up. Because I've had a lot of guys say, don't touch it until they just grab it and go. I'm like, you're not going to even catch a single fish letting them do it like that. You got to hook. You got to hook these damn fish when they're biting like this time of year. Trent said, ain't no wind today. I had a buddy that went today and did pretty good. He called and said, man, I'm out here. I'm out on the flat where you've been fishing, and it's covered with fish, but they ain't biting. I sent him a map picture. I said, you see this little piece of structure right here? Go get right on top of that and then try. Do the exact same thing you're doing, but get on that piece of structure. He called back about an hour later. He's like, man, I got a 37, a 30, 3 20s, about 5 teeners in an hour.
And that goes to show, Chris, just that one little technique, moving from something to moving to something else, how much that helps. It's just crazy.
He's like, man, I got over here. There ain't a whole lot of fish. I said, but the ones that are there are going to be more willing to bite than the ones that you're marking out there that are laid down in the mud on that flat. Yep. I know it's hard to pass those up when you're seeing all these fish all over this flat. You're like, man, it's about to be on. But typically, no wind, fish on the flat, they don't bite. They don't bite at all. So some days they will. I've had days where we caught them out there on those flats, but the majority of the days, as soon as the wind dies, my buddies, because I got buddies all fishing around me, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm moving. I'm getting up and moving, man. The wind just died. Like, well, we're catching fish. I was like, not anymore. You're about to not catch another freaking thing if you stay right here.
Yeah.
So.
And Chris, how did you come to that, man? Just fishing that area so much, or how did you come to that?
These lakes a lot, and I got buddies that just will anchor on structure. Even like when I'm out fishing on the flats, dragging, they'll anchor on structure, and I'm kicking their ass when we got wind. But as soon as the wind dies, they start out fishing me, and I'm thinking, all right, well, they're on a piece of structure, still able to catch these fish. These fish on structure, they still biting. How about if I drag this freaking piece of structure? So that's how I came across it. I just crafted my dragging game to try to catch fish where most guys used to go anchor. They're like, wind died, go anchor structure. Just time to go anchor. And I'm like, I don't want to anchor. I want to drag. So that's what I do. I still drag even though there's no wind. I just move to structure. It might be a shoreline contour. It might be a long point. It might be a levee. A ridge. Like if I'm fishing Texoma, we get on the ridge a lot. Now, it might not always work, but a lot of times it will work. You move off that flat, get on a piece of structure, and generally you can do well enough to be able to leave the lake not feeling so freaking bad. So
that's right. That's it. Moving over
Bobby
here.
Says he's getting tapped like crazy tonight.
He just said no bait.
High pressure. That's going to be more tapping. They come up, bump it, just inspecting it, and they never really bite it. I think dragging That's what helps you with dragging on a day like that. You're going to get a little bit of a reaction bite where they're like, I got to get it before it's getting away. So they'll just grab it just to see, and you can catch more fish that way. So you're at a disadvantage, buddy. But I would say if you can if you're on that ledge, try to get your baits right there at the bottom of that ledge. Now, you know how you're going to determine that. I'm not a shore angler anymore, but you know, when I'm on side image, I can see when I got my graph, I can tell exactly where that thing is. And typically you can move right there at the base of that shoreline contour, Tommy, and there's going to be active fish sitting on the bottom of that thing. So if you can get your baits around that, if you can get your baits out on there, you probably can catch a few. Vess says, "What's up, Slimers? Welcome, Vess."
What's up, Vess?
Chris Garcia says he got him some new Parks planers and can't even fish this weekend.
Oh, man.
And they can be very finicky. I would say when you're dragging and they get finicky, a lot of times I'll put smaller baits on and I'll use fillets. Fluttering fillets tend to get a reactionary bite more than a chunk. If they're really biting, they'll eat anything. But a lot of times, if you're trying to get them just to hit from a reaction deal rather than a feeding deal, a fluttering fillet will get you more action than a chunk.
Yep.
I can guarantee it. I've done them both for a long time. I've done both. It's rare I even put a chunk on anymore because the fillets just work so much better. Fillet or a whole fish, when dragging, going to outfish a chunk 95% of the time, guys. Guaranteed.
Yes.
Guaranteed. Now, you can still catch them on chunks, but you're not going to have, you're not going to have a day with 25 big fish fishing chunks very often. Doesn't happen.
Alex said, I really appreciate all the great info you guys put out there on this show. If you're not learning something every time you fish or get advice from other anglers, you are missing out. Always add to your tackle box of knowledge. That is it, man.
Try to iron out some of the hills and straighten some of the curves for guys. Hopefully help some of y'all not eliminate some of this painful part of the fishing, because trophy catfishing, man, it's freaking painful. It's brutally painful at times. So that's one of the things we're trying to help our guys eliminate some of the pain. And I know it's working because we got guys that are like, man, I've been following the show for a year and I've absorbed all this and I'm having my best year ever. And it's because of the show. So,
and guys, on that point, feel free to go to Carolina Lakewood's Facebook page, show those pictures off, man, and everything. We definitely encourage that, guys, too.
Catfish Junkie says, what about presentation when taking pictures, long arm or not?
Oh boy.
Oh man. Here's the thing with long arming. For the long arm, I don't like it. It's not necessarily because of the picture taking, but I just seen too many people drop fish when they're trying to keep it away from them. I'm like, man, you're here. You got a good fish, embrace the slime, protect the fish. I don't care if it's just a 20-pounder. Those 20s and 30s flop around more than a big fish. Just hang on to that damn thing and keep it protected. Really, it's fish health. It's about the fish health. And hell, by the end of the day, that slime on your shirt shows what kind of day you had. You be proud of it,
Heck, wear that T-shirt to bed, man. Shot.
The slime tells the story. Tommy says no bait on 5 out of 7 rods. Yeah, you need to put a more robust type of bait on. Tommy, go bigger on baits to keep those little ones from chewing you to pieces.
That's it.
A lot of times these guys that are trophy, like it's similar to trophy bass fishing. The trophy bass fishermen will say, yeah, you got to catch the little ones out of there before you'll get the big ones. So just because you're getting little ones doesn't mean there's not a giant there. The same can be for catfish. The little ones are more aggressive. They're an eater's like a damn piranha, man. They'll follow you for freaking 2 miles chewing that thing up.
Yeah, I was about to say, put something on there, man.
Put something on there they can't get all the way in their mouth and just chew up. That's what I do. I try to put something on there that's going to eliminate some of those dinks.
Vest says, hug that thing.
There's Mayor Alexander. We had him on the show, or we had him on the boat a few weeks ago, catching fish and having a good old time. Changed his name to the mayor of Catfishville after that trip. Killer B. Got to look at the navionics. Yeah, that navionics is pretty crucial for any angler. Doesn't matter if you're a bank angler or a boat guy. Garcia says, got any reels for sale? I give you a GPS coordinate of a
Dakota.
I give you the GPS coordinates for a Dakota 600. And it's got a Mad Cat's goblin attached to it.
Oh my goodness, Chris, I got one for you.
Can you talk like Levon, buddy? You can have it.
Can you talk through your presentation strategies before, during, and after a big cold front? I have heard a lot of conflicting info over the years.
All right, so here's what the deal is with the cold weather. When you get a big polar front, right, the fish are going to group up. The bait is going to group up. They're going to pile in thick. They're going to move to a comfort zone. They're going to move to an area of the lake where they can feel comfortable. Now, the day the front hits, they may not bite. Major fluctuations in barometric pressure. The second day of the front, they may not bite because pressure's still messed up. You've got huge temperature swings. The water temperature will drop 6 degrees in a day. Freaks the fish out. They don't want to bite. But by day 2, there's usually a few biting. By day 3, they're starting to feed. And what are they feeding on? Because everything is piled up and very lethargic. Bait fish are lethargic. Game fish are lethargic. They can barely even move. It's almost like they're in a hibernation mode. They're just frozen. Blue cats, they get lethargic, but they can still swim around and feed no problem. And they actually gorge. When you see that, they will be gorging. So what do they like? They like something that's big, easy. You don't have to see bait balls pushed up off the bottom. Big fish are not. It's not like in the summer or the spring where they're swimming around real fast, chasing stuff and pushing bait up off the bottom. They're laying there. They're just laying there, and they might move a little bit here and there. And as something big gets in front of their face, they open up and they suck it down. And, you can still catch big fish off of small baits then, but you're also going to catch a ton of little fish. And, we talked about it a lot last week. If your hooks are out of the water because you're dealing with little fish, you're passing the big fish. And, you know, if your bait was in the water when you went past that big fish, you got a chance to catch him. If there's no bait in the water, you've moved. He's gone. Chance is over. So I used to suspend baits a lot under planer boards, but over time I've done less and less of it. I used to do it when there was a thermocline, but I have found it's much easier when there's a thermocline to move to the depth that that thermocline is actually in, instead of being out in deeper water and there's a thermocline and then trying to suspend to the thermocline. I actually go to the depth where that thermocline is and fish that zone. It's just, I've found it to be much easier to find fish in that scenario than trying to find them out in open water during a thermocline. They move so fast you can't hardly stay on fish. So that's
Chris, I've got another one here. What do you think is the best way to present hand-sized bluegill for dragging? Now, I know I've got a technique for that myself. What do you think is
Well, if you're using a hand size, I got big hands, so I would stinger rig mine. I'd put one in the nose. I'd chop the tail off. I would fillet it down one side, and as I fillet it, I'm going through the body or through the tail. I'm cutting the back tail of it off, and then I would take that fillet, which a big bluegill, your fillet is going to be about like that with the tail. I'm going to chop that tail off. I'm going to put the whole fillet on, and I'm going to use the whole bluegill. I'm going to put a hook through the nose. I'm going to put a stinger hook sticking out. Basically, let's see if I've got a bluegill like this, I'm going to put a hook in the nose, right? Pulling it this way, and I'm going to have a hook coming out the tail, fully exposed out the back tail like that. So that's just how I do it, you know. And I think this time of year, when you're using big baits, a lot of times the big fish are going to bite that big bait to try to injure it. They could swallow it whole, but that's just not the nature of big catfish. If they think it's alive, they're going to try to crush that thing first, and they may just hold that thing in their mouth and try to damage it. So the stinger hook, that's what the stinger hook's going to get. It's going to get those really big fish that are coming up and just crushing that bait and trying to kill it. And then you're hooking them that way.
And Chris, I'm like you know, how you're doing it. And I also got a different technique also that I like using is I'll actually take the center bone out, the tail and all, have both sides cut it where both sides is just sitting there flapping, and had the whole center bone out of it, and still use a stinger on one side to hook through. But I got it where the fillets are sitting there doing that on both sides. And
that'll give you a little action.
Yeah.
Give you some action.
Yeah.
I like that.
And I don't have that on every one. I'm doing it kind of like what you did, and then have that on a couple of them. Just try to change up the different, strategies and presentation to the fish.
So Chris Garcia says, is Lavon decent in the hot summer? I would say absolutely not. There's not a good lake in Texas for blue cats in the summer. I mean, I won't say that. You catch eaters. Now, we caught a 50 on Lavon in August, but I never fished so damn hard in my life for a big fish. I fished my ass off all day and half the night for a bunch of eaters, and we got lucky and got one good one right as it was getting dark off Power Plant Point. Just got lucky, man. It was pure luck. I didn't mark big fish. I went all over the lake. It's just summertime is not a great time for trophy catfishing in Texas.
And I can tell you guys, this summer, definitely pay close attention, because we're going to definitely go after, I know Rebecca herself, we're going to go after some big flatheads this summer. So y'all stick around for some of the flathead fishing this summer. She's ready to get back at it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be hitting them gator gar again.
Yep.
Be catching them 200-pounders again.
Oh man. Oh, screaming reels.
Welcome to our world. Not sure who he's talking to.
I don't know who. I haven't seen that in here before.
Texas trophy catfishing is not good for blues in the summer. Doesn't matter what lake you're on. You can still have a good trip here and there, but you're not going. Here's what's funny. I told last August, I said, man, I can't wait till trophy catfish season's here. And all these freaking guys said, man, there ain't no such thing as trophy catfish season. And I'm like, how long have y'all been doing this? Because if y'all think that August is like January, then you're a fool, because we catch 25 or 30 big fish in January and February a trip. And in August, we might get one. So you tell me which one's trophy catfish season. I'm going to be going January every time if I'm looking for something big. So
he said he was talking about summertime blues.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, summertime. Summer worst time for trophy blues. Winter and spring best time. Okay.
Yeah, I would say spring pre-spawn is your absolutely best chance to catch a monster, just because they're predictable where they're going to be going on most fisheries. And wintertime is your best time for catching big fish numbers. Most places when the water temps around 45 degrees, it's freaking hammerfest for big blues. 45 to 40 is just hammerfest. 50 to 40 degrees, it's big blues feeding hard on big giant baits then.
Chris, when do you see the bite dying off? End of April?
End of April. Yeah, usually by May, it's water's warmed up. All the big fish have moved into spawn. Smoking Joe Pit Barbecue, can you please go over how to properly set up a rig using CLW? I don't know if I got any.
I was about to say, I don't have my rods in here right now, brother, but
I got some spring rigs. This is not how I'm rigging now.
Smoking Joe's, we appreciate that too, brother. We really hope you'll enjoy those when you get them out there, man.
This is a summertime rig, springtime rig. After I've downsized, I use this around the threadfin spawn. A lot of guys rig this way all year, but I'm typically using a sinker slide when I rig for dragging. This is when I'm going from dragging to anchoring on the same day. So in the spring, I use a 3-way swivel. But this time of year, this would be a sinker slide. So I got and this is braid because I anchor a lot in the spring, but I typically use 30-pound mono main line to a sinker slide, Carolina lake weight on it. Then I'll put a bumper bead. This one doesn't have one because it's an anchor rig. I'll put a bumper bead. Then I'll tie my swivel, and then I got my leader. This one is 80-pound mono. I crimp it onto my swivel. This has got a Demon Dragon 4.0 this is an 8-aught hook from Carolina Lake Weights. I use 10-aughts this time of year. That's the basic rig. I use this rig I'm showing now. I use in the springtime when I'm anchoring up shallow. you want to see how I rig in the winter, I'll go grab you a rod off the boat. I got the boat parked right here behind the shop. I'll be right back.
And guys, if you have some more questions, feel free while Chris is going out. Feel free to ask. We'll be going through chat, definitely answering all the questions we can. So on Facebook or over on YouTube, if y'all guys have any questions, I'll be definitely going through. I'll as soon as he gets back in, Killer B, I'll ask him about how long those leaders are that he's using. And guys, also, I'll show you here while Chris is going to get that. Let me see. A lot of times here, if you get pre-tied rigs from us here at Carolina Lake Weights, guys, this is the Jesse James rig. Now, the Jesse James rigs, I just got this one that I'm showing. I don't send these out with the swivels and stuff, but some of our pre-tied rigs does come with this exact same setup on the rigs, double crimp. And I've got a hook right here to where you basically tie your main line, then put your Carolina Lake Weights right here. And Chris also shows you another way of using the sinker slides. So if you get some, we have these on there. Some we don't have them on there. But that's also another way if you want to use your dragon weights that you can hook it up also. And that's just a mainline drifting weight. Chris, about how long is your leaders?
30 inches to my rattle. Typically, most of the year. So some days I'll go shorter. Springtime, I'll start rigging them a little shorter, but I can adjust that. But here's my main line. I got main line, 30-pound mono. I got a sinker slide, Carolina Lake weight, bumper bead. This protects the knot. This is a rubber bumper bead. I don't know. Y'all call them jelly poppers or something.
Yeah.
Jamie sent me these. Tie that to a Roscoe 2-aught Roscoe swivel. That might be a 1-aught. And I crimp that onto my 80-pound leader. Got about 30 inches. Running this one on a Demon Dragon Brute. Stinger rigged. So here's my front hook. This one goes in the nose. Here's the back hook. This one goes in the tail. So you can see that's about a 10-inch bait. I'll put that on. These are Action Jackson 10-aught hooks from Carolina Lake Weights.
And Chris, you using pretty much you using the 2-ounce weight, correct?
I use 2-ounce weights 95% of the year. Only time I switch it up and go to 3-ounce in a lake is if I'm fishing super deep with some big waves. I'll go to a 3-ounce.
Chris got Chris asking also, do you ever use the 12-aughts? I know we just released a brand new 12-aughts here at Carolina Lake Weights that we've been using a lot of. Chris and yourself.
Here's the deal. 12-aughts would be fine, but on my stinger rigs, I like a thinner wire hook. I'm going to try to use thin wire hook. I like that Action Jackson hook. It's a thin wire. What that's going to do, a lot of guys don't understand why, but I'll tell you why I do it.
And guys, I just want to point out too, the 12 volts, you can see the offset. This is a 12. It is also a thinner, a little bit thinner.
Okay, if you're trying to have a natural presentation, guys, okay, and you're dragging a big whole bait or a giant fillet, if you got a heavy hook in the tail, this thing's going to ride like this through the water column. I don't know about y'all, but I've never seen a fish in the lake swimming like this. Big catfish are smart. Presentation is key. An injured fish is swimming like this. Now, it may tilt down like this a little bit, but if you've got a thinner wire hook, it's not so damn heavy and riding your bait like this. So that's the reason I use that particular hook. That's why we chose that hook. It's for presentation purposes. You can use a bigger hook. Yes. A lot of these guys use these big, heavy river-style hooks. But for dragging, presentation is key. And I like that 10-aught. I've caught fish up to 85 pounds on them, no problem.
And this right here, guys, is the 10. This is the 12. And you can see right there how it's almost the same far as the wiring, where it's not that heavy as a hook.
Yeah, now my front hooks or my single hook rigs, I'd like to use those 12s. So Jamie's got some 12s coming to me. I'm gonna put those on my single hook rigs. I might put those on my front hook, on my stinger rigs. So,
okay, got another question for you here too, Chris. When downsizing bait on a cold front day, do you downsize your rigs, float size, and leader length?
Leader length, yes. So all my rigs are a variable depth rig. So instead of having to switch out a whole rig, I got this on a zip tie. If I want to put my bait on the bottom, okay. If I want my bait up high, it's floating like this, right?
Chris, can you show that whole? I got this
If
question
I want
leads
it floating down by the bottom, I switch this, and now this thing's going to ride down by the bottom.
That leads into another question, Chris. That same rig that you're just showing, pretty much is both hooks a 10-aught, and how far do you normally run your rattle from your hook?
I put my rattle real close to the hook. I like to run it about like that. Guys, fish are not rattle shy. All these guys that say fish are rattle shy, they're full of crap. I've caught giant fish where only the rattle's in their mouth. Okay? Before Demon Dragon put this good coating on there, they were painted. Like a lot of guys still paint them. But
yeah,
my Demon Dragons used to come back with no paint on them after a season of fishing with them. That's because the fish are freaking hammering these things, man. They're not shy with these. They're attracted to them. I've caught enough fish, got it all the way to the boat. The hook's not even in their mouth. They didn't even go after the bait. They went after the damn rattle over the bait.
And a lot of times, like Chris saw, guys, you'll see this come back, man, just where it's been hit. I mean, just teeth marks and stuff where this thing's been hit real heavy. And you'll see that a lot with these rattles. And I think, that goes into another thing where people are talking about rigs. Plain Jane rigs to having stuff on your rigs. Chris, we were saying earlier in the show, sometimes certain days they like all the bells and whistles. Some days they might not like as much bells and whistles. But guys, if you don't have it and you don't have different rods rigged up, you'll never know. I mean, you can go look at a lot of Chris's pictures. He can show you a lot of.
You can watch me fish. Well, we don't live fish a lot anymore, but when we live fish, you can see damn near all the fish are coming off a certain rig every day. And I'll be like, well, there he is again off of off the stinger rig or off the, the teaser rig or,
And this is the prime. There's the new teaser rig right here, guys. If you go over, and I think Ricky Garza has a beautiful picture where his daughter and they just caught a nice looking blue. She just broke her PB 2 weeks in a row off of the teaser rig. You can see this right here, still in the fish's mouth, where they like this. They like this stuff, guys. I'm telling you, it will work.
It's like using a fillet. So anybody that tells you you don't need one, you don't need this, you don't need that, because they caught their fish off of a fish head that day.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what would have happened if I would have gone and fished in that same spot, but I used all fillets? Okay. They caught 3 good fish. How do you know that the guy running the fillet wouldn't have caught 15 good fish? Because I fish around a lot of guys with chunks, with no rattles, with a basic rig, and they had a great day. Yeah, they got 2 good fish. They had a great day. Okay. There's different levels to this. Just because one guy says you don't need it, don't freaking believe them, man. Fish like rattles. They like vibration. They're attracted to it. You don't have to have it to catch fish. If you put the right bait in front of a fish, he will eat it. But what if you can't get your bait right in front of him? What if you need to attract that fish 10 feet? They might not be attracted to something that's not fluttering or vibrating or rattling, whereas they might just come check out that. I've fished with those damn vibrating spinners enough to realize there's something to this spinner on there on a certain day. They're all coming off of the damn spinner.
Chris, we were just talking not too long ago. Peg float versus these style rigs, man. What is the percentage off of a regular Santee rig compared to something with a rattle or a spinner or the teaser?
I think if you're anchoring, it's not a big variable. But when you're dragging, I've tested rigs long enough for Jamie.
And we've got them all kinds.
I'm the rig tester. I'm the rig tester. I put the rig up against the other rigs to determine if it's going to be a good rig. And I can tell you the rattle outfishes a regular float 10, 20 to 1. Now, if I would have just had all floats on, would I have caught those fish? It's quite possible. I don't know. But I do know when you put them both side by side, they pick that rattle over the regular peg float at a dramatic increase. So, they're drawn to it. They're drawn to it. Now, if that rattle wasn't over there rattling next to that peg float, would they just go ahead and go over to that peg float? It's quite possible. So but I do know there's something to vibration and rattle that does get their attention. And if that only means 3 extra fish on a trip, hell, it's worth it to me if I caught 3 extra fish. Now, in a big trophy catfishing type day, what if it means 5 extra fish? What if it means a 50 that day? Hell, I'm all for it, And I'm not scared to try new things. Just because something else worked doesn't mean something new can't actually work better. I think also a lot of these fish that we're catching have been caught before. So having something that's a little bit different than the guy that just drug before you that caught the fish 3 weeks ago, try to make your rig a little bit different. So having something a little bit different, I think is going to help you, because they've found these bigger fish are smart. They've been caught before. They're not going to probably go after the same scenario as they got caught last time.
How about non-wind days, Chris? How much difference in luck have you had off of the rattles or the skirts than you have just a plain Jane rig, man?
I think that's going to get your reaction bite. That's when that rattle really helps you dragging. And the no-win day is really the day that vibration, that flutter, that fillet is going to really help you get a fish to have a reactionary type strike rather than a feeding deal where you just, oh, there's some food, I'm going to go eat it. It's there's something fluttering that's injured. Something in my nature tells me to go hit that like a cat on a string. I think that's the biggest difference is when you're presenting something like that. It's
And that's just like, guys, having something as simple as these 4-bladed Carolina twisters as a rattle to help you than having just a plain Jane peg float, or right here, having the shockwave floats, rattles, something gives that little bit
look
extra.
at it like this. You got a cat who's laid up on the couch. He's been eating good all day, right? He's not hungry. He's not hungry at all. You can crack a thing of food over there and try to feed him. He don't want to eat it, right? But you go dangle one of those kitty toys over there that's got a little bit of a bell on it.
That's
and
it.
That thing, he wakes right up and he comes over there and checks it out and might smack it a couple times before he realizes, I'm tired. I'm going to go lay back down. It's the same exact thing for catfish. It's all those bells and whistles are going to get the reactionary type bite, not the feeding hard bite that they're just going to eat that day. Doesn't matter how you rig for them. They just go get the bait, eat it.
And I tell guys, man, rig it up, put them on your rods, and find out for yourself. I mean, you'll definitely be able to tell, guys.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, try it out.
That's the best. You see some high-level guy who's been doing it for 20 years, not using all this stuff and telling everybody you don't need all this. He doesn't need it. He's been doing it for 20 years. He can go off all the other stuff. But what if you need a little enticement from a fish who's maybe not so active, or you need to call him in 15 feet? I'm going for it. It's working for me, man. Do I use the fish head? I do use the fish head. I use the fish head on that rig Jamie just showed with the teaser on it.
And I can tell you guys,
and I will say this: the fish head typically does not catch as many fish as because I do use the fish head every trip. Always going to put some heads on, just because I want to know. But out of 8 trips, the head is really going to only be the favorite piece one trip out of probably 8 trips. Out of 8 trips, the fillet or the whole body, the whole fish will outproduce that head 8 out of 8, 7 out of 8 trips.
And guys, also come back to the river fishermen. That's what we were born and raised up on. I anchor fish with all this stuff we're showing tonight. And I can tell you, my rattles, the rattles, the skirts, I catch a lot more fish anchor fishing than I do with just having a plain Jane cork on my rig.
Hell, I've gotten where that's all. I got the rattles. Why not just freaking use them on all rigs?
Yep.
At this point, it's not, on these rigs, I'm going to do a float. I rattle rig everything.
That's it.
I've had enough success where that's just how I'm going to do it. So, Killer B says he uses the heads a lot. Some days that's all they want. Some days you wouldn't even think they eat them. He will always leave a part on the head. And that's a lot. That's the way I used to do it a lot. I would fillet at an angle. I would cut that headpiece at an angle so it does have just a little bit of skin flap, something to create a little bit of action and vibration. But I started using that teaser rig probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and I've started realizing the teaser rig does a lot of that dancing on a headpiece. So,
Yeah.
and I do have heads. I run them. I use that. I put that skirt rig on there with the teaser.
I tell you, people, man, those skirt rigs, man, it's amazing how they work underwater, guys. I'm telling you, it is crazy. If you ever got an opportunity where you're around some water that's moving, and you can actually take a GoPro and you can put it underneath that water, you can watch that just sit there fluttering, guys, just moving like that. So you're sitting there looking at that with some current or dragging and stuff. Imagine what that catfish is thinking when that thing comes by their head, man. It's the wildest thing you've ever seen.
I think it creates a little bit of vibration, and fish can sense the vibration.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Presentation. That's what I tell guys. They're like, I don't understand. How did you do that with me right next to you? It's all presentation, guys. So pay attention to how you're presenting your bait. You want to present it in a natural manner. And a lot of it could be speed, the speed at which you're presenting it. If you're dragging, speed is paramount. Man, I mean, it is one of the biggest factors between hammering them and just catching a few or just doing okay. And speed my speed increments move in 0.1 mile per hour increments. So 0.1 could make all the difference between catching 3 fish and catching 30. I know it sounds like it's only 0.1 mile per hour. It makes all the freaking difference. So in the beginning of the day, figure out that speed that they're wanting it at, and get that part dialed in early. That shouldn't take more than about 30 minutes to figure out what the fish are wanting. If you're not getting bit within about 20 minutes, you need to be starting to adjust your speed. And you're going to know real quick when you speed up if you get bit, and you're going to realize, okay, I just sped up and I got immediately bit. Okay, now I'm going to start going a little faster. And sure enough, there goes another strike. And there's another bite. Now I got a fish in the boat. Now we're starting to do something. So playing with the speed is critical for success. And I would say typically when the wind dies, you slow down. That has not been the case this year. And that's what I've always told guys. If the wind dies, slow your presentation down. This year we've sped up, and we're going 0.6, 0.7 on a no-wind day. And when we got wind, I'm slowing down to 0.4, which normally it's the opposite. I'm speeding up with wind and slowing down with no wind. So figuring out that speed and figuring out what they want size-wise, the earlier you can get that figured out, the better day you're going to have. Because I see all these guys going with me, and they'll all line up with me, and here they come. They start behind me. Now they're going past me. Now they're all passing me, and I'm still just going real slow. We got good wind. They're all just, and then they're like, well, how'd you do? I'm like, well, we smoked them. How'd y'all do? Well, we barely even got a bite. I'm like, well, you were going too fast, or, slow down or speed up.
That's it. Hey, Catfish Cowboy, in a river, are you always dragging against the wind or current? I know we just went over this, Chris, not too long ago, and the reasoning behind it and everything.
So river's a lot different than lake, but there are some similarities. Current-wise, they're usually facing into current, correct, in a river, Jamie?
Yeah, yes. Yep.
They're facing into current. They're ambushing into current. Lake is the same. They're facing into wind, into the current. They're ambushing into wind. And how you can determine that is by looking at the graph. when you got about 12-mile-an-hour wind, you're going to notice every freaking fish in the lake is pointed in the same direction.
That's it.
You want to bring it to them in a natural presentation. The bait is coming to them, and they're freaking taking the bait down. I would imagine it's similar.
It's the same thing, yeah, on the river, yeah.
Now, if you got to go against the wind or against current, you're going to really have to slow down, because if you're trying to go the same speed as you would go with the wind or with the current, you got to slow down, because you're bringing the fish. It's not a natural way to bring the fish. The fish is coming, the bait's coming from behind them. So you got to give them a little time to adjust and realize there's bait there. Whether it's when it's coming at them, they know it's coming. They know it's coming. Oh, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. They suck it down. So presentation is key, and determining how they want it. If they're on ambush structure, they want it a specific way. They're waiting. They're in that real estate, waiting for that right bait to come to them, and then they open up and eat it. So,
and especially if you're on a river that's a tidal river where it changes about every 6 to 7 hours, that is wonderful, man. I'm telling you guys, they get used to that certain way, and then when that tide starts turning around, then it's freaking awesome, man.
Ivy says he always adjusts his speed during the whole drift, especially when they're slow. And when they're slow, that's when you're able to make your adjustments to determine what's the ideal speed that they want it at. Because when it is slow, there's generally going to be a speed that you can still catch fish at.
Yeah.
And have a successful day. You just have to figure out what that speed is, what that bait size is, how far up off the bottom are they wanting it.
And I can tell you guys, depending on the day and the wind and how that goes, you normally can find out pretty quickly when you do that, when the bite, start getting bites. You'll be able to tell pretty quickly.
So, Juan, if the wind's less than 10, you can look on your graph. The fish are all going to be, they look like pigs feeding, I mean, they're all just kind of, you won't see them all. You can go whatever direction you want, but as soon as they face into the wind, that's when you're going to want to bring it to them. And the way I've figured that out is just over time. I used to go one direction instead of, I would do well, and I would say, all right, I'm just going to turn around and go with the wind and go against the wind now. And I caught 12 fish, and now I caught 2 going against it. So, Presentation.
Every time you get on the boat, man, just think of that word, presentation, every time.
Get your presentation right, and you'll be able to catch fish even on the worst freaking days where everybody else says, there ain't no fish biting today. You'll be hurting people's feelings coming off the lake. Promise.
That's it.
Now,
that's just like people that's
anchored. Will be a day where some days fish just aren't catchable.
Yeah.
But typically, there's somebody out there that got something figured out that ended up doing pretty good. So that's the key, is figuring out the presentation on the days they're not biting. That's when your presentation really is going to save your ass.
And that just goes to determine, when do you stay on anchor? When do you come off of anchor and go to dragging? That's things also to look at too. Wind from the north.
Yeah, so if they're in a one fit, typically you want to get out in the wind, but some days you can get out of the wind, and that's where all the fish are that are feeding. Now, why is it that way? Hell, I don't know why they do that sometimes, but some days when I'm struggling, it's windy, I get to protected water, and all of a sudden it's freaking hammerfest. So, I wish I could say I know why it's like that, but that's going to be a day where something's not quite working. You say, all right, this not working. Well, let's go look where they shouldn't be. And then it's go time. So, sometimes you got to think outside the box to be successful on a tough day. And I think maybe sometimes in really big water, you're not presenting your bait naturally because those waves are jerking that bait around a little too much. And the fish are like, these fish just look weird. I'm not going to bite that. Something's not right. So they won't bite it. So that's just my weird way of trying to figure it out. I think that maybe it's possibly when it's big wind and big waves, and you're not super deep, that maybe that's not a natural way that you're dragging those baits. They're doing something weird, and I'm thinking that's probably why on a day like that they're not biting good out in open water. Can your graphic show 0.5 but be going sideways or backwards? Yeah, your graph's going to read 0.5. It's going to read the doesn't matter what direction you're going. It's going to read how fast you're going, even if you're sideways or going forwards or backwards.
Chris, do you normally slice your fillets pretty thin, or do you leave them kind of thick?
I leave them pretty thick. That I don't know that you got to have them just going crazy flutter. Just a little bit of flutter seems to get their attention. I would say as I'm filleting it back, a fish gets thinner towards the tail. Now I will say this, Leland, I think sometimes by the end of the day, my big baits are actually catching fish better than they were at the beginning when it's whole and solid. So I think by the end of the day, it's been hammered. It's just doing this in the water, and it's just getting destroyed, man. So, maybe you might be onto something with the thinner. I put it pretty thick when it's beginning. And if you're on fish, they tend to thin it out for you.
Yeah.
You're going to have smaller fish hitting big baits and chewing on them and knocking them around. And I always also say, well, those are small fish. But activity creates activity. And if you got small ones banging around a giant bait, sometimes it might be the dinner call for a bigger fish to come inspect what's the activity that's going on. Well, Jamie,
looks like we're out.
We got rolling tonight, buddy.
I ain't lying, man. Guys, I'm gonna tell you, some very good questions. I know, like I was saying, time you get on your boat, just remember that word that we've said probably 1,000 times: presentation. Take a second, make sure that you've got it right, and I guarantee you're gonna put more fish in the boat, guys. I promise you, it will definitely work. Just pay attention to the little details, and it goes a long ways. And like Chris talks about with the graph will help you so much. Don't forget about the graph. Definitely pay attention to that graph. And don't be afraid if something's not working to change up and try something different.
Yeah, don't be afraid to change.
That's it.
And you ought to know within 20 minutes whether something's working or not. If you're getting bumped around, then you know that they're attracted to it. They're attracted to something that's going on. So it might be a little smaller adjustment than a big adjustment. So, sometimes your adjustments are in small increments. You don't have to do a huge change. Small things can change. you know, shortening your leader, shrinking that bait size up a little bit,
Yep, that's it.
speeding up a hair, slowing down a hair, moving over to structure. Those are all going to be keys to getting these damn blue cats figured out, boys.
That's right. Chris was asking, what ounce weights do you use when anchoring? Now, myself, Chris, I think you might fish close to Chris or down in
Yeah,
your area. Now, myself as a river fisherman, I'm going anywhere depending on which river I'm on, from a 10 ounce to a 4 ounce if I'm anchoring. I've got rivers I'm going to put a 10 ounce on with no problem. I've got rivers I might just use a 4 ounce. It might not have as much current.
yeah.
So, down in your area,
I
if you're
typically throw a 3 ounce in the lake if I'm up shallow and there's no wind, and that's pretty much going to keep it there pretty good. If there's big wind and waves, you might need to go a little heavier. A lot of the times I'm fishing shallow in the spring, I'm up in the stumps, up in the grass, right around the creek or river mouth. It's a lot of debris and stumps up in there where I'm at. So typically throw a 3 ounce. I don't have to have a super tight line because the fish are super aggressive and grab it and run. You can see them running more than you need a tight line to set a hook. So,
and that's just like, this is the 3 ounce right here, Chris. Let me get the El Gato signature one. Here we go. That's even better. It shows up better. This right here is a 3 ounce, guys. And you look at this when you're sitting on structure and you're thinking, okay, I'm throwing on the back side of a tree or something. Now you're using a drifting weight. This right here is going to help you so much more than regular lead. Helping you when say this bottom, when you go to bring it back up, help you jump it back over. The
yeah.
length of these also, works real well. That's why we do this length, different lengths on different ones that we have, because you can use them for anchor fishing and everything.
Yeah, when you're anchoring up shallow and you're reeling those in, first thing you do is you reel the bow out of the line. You get that thing tight. Then you lift the rod tip up and you reel that sucker in. That's going to help you get that drift weight lifted up and over those stumps. So Justin Cox says he has a lot of luck with using heads. Always have a head, fillet, and full bait out. Then mix it up with the rest of the rods.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, I'm a hummingbird guy. And I got a lot of guys that come on the boat that run every freaking draft in the world. And even though my draft's 10 years old, they say, man, I got to get a hummingbird after looking at yours. So for what it's worth, that hummingbird is a damn good graph. And they got a new one that just dropped called the Explorer. And it's supposed to have 4 chips in it and a bigger processor. And it's got the new GPS that's going to be in the head unit. It's going to be, I don't know, it gets closer to a foot rather than 5 feet when you're graphing or when you're plotting, pinning. So if let's say you're on bait, that algorithm in that graph, you can determine, all right, my transducer is 8 feet to the back of the boat. That graph can now determine, all right, he made that pin on this pile of bait. You're going to be over that pile of bait exactly when you throw your net. Whereas before, you might think you see it on the graph, you hit go to and you go to it. You might not be actually be directly over that pile of bait. So technology has dramatically increased. I've heard it's got a drift mode, which means you can point it instead of like the go to or what's the feature where it just points you in the right direction.
Yeah,
Now they have a drift mode where you can point it down a line, and it'll hold you on that line instead of before the wind would blow you off, but it would keep you going in that direction. Now it'll hold you on that line, which I think's an insanely good feature for the way I fish. If I'm trying to hit a channel and I don't want to have to necessarily pin the channel, I just want to run straight up that channel or straight up that ledge, I can hit that drift mode and it'll keep that boat on that freaking ledge without having to set a bunch of set a course of pins like what I'm doing now. I have to really jockey my graph and pin it all how I want to run it. I think it's just going to simplify the way a lot of us that drag do it. So
technology's changing every year, man.
Chris, I use the go-to feature a lot. Yeah, the transducer on the front be great. They got the new Explorer trolling motors that are coming out. They're high dollar, but they're a lot more durable. And they got a transducer built in with this Mega and all that side image built into it. I throw my net off the back of the boat because that's where my transducer is. And I know, all right, bait straight down right there. I can throw my net over it and get my bait. So mine's all connected. It's iPilot Link. It's smart trolling motor, smart fishing, dumb fisherman.
Oh
man. Yeah, but I've used Hummingbird for a long time. I owned a Lowrance for a little while. I had come from Hummingbird, and I'm like, I got to get back to Hummingbird. So they all have similar technology. For me, I like Hummingbird. It's clear, simple, and easy to use. I'm gonna have to pony up and get me a new one.
Man, I'm gonna have to work a couple more years.
Fishing be expensive. It's complicated, Scott says. Yeah, it is. A lot of times figuring these graphs out is like learning a new language.
I ain't lying. Lewis says, thanks for the information tonight. Look forward to next week's show. Appreciate that, buddy.
Yep. It's I need to get out for this nasty front hits, I'm thinking Friday. So boys, anything else, Jamie? Before we hit the road?
I just want to say, man, I've enjoyed tonight's show, man. A lot of good information, guys, and like I said, we really enjoy sharing. I know Chris has been sharing more than I have right now because I've been stuck in the shop. But that's it, man. We've been trying to make it happen for everybody out there. We love it. It's well worth it, man. Our great family and friends and fishermen out there loving our products and stuff. We appreciate y'all. It's well worth it, man. I'll take a little bit
coming up in about a month.
Yeah, CatCon coming up. We got Harrisburg, Pennsylvania coming up. We'll be up there for 2 weeks.
I hope I get to see a lot of you guys at CatCon this year.
Yep. Don't be afraid to come by and shake our hands, hug our necks.
We always love it. For anybody that hadn't gone, if you're a cat fisherman, it's a great time. So we'll be there. We'll be there Thursday night. Probably help Jamie set up. Or we'll be there Thursday midday.
Thursday midday? Heck yeah.
I help y'all set up. Come say hello to everybody that's got booths.
This year is going to be a lot of fun, man. It really is. We even got a bigger booth this year. Pretty much still in the same area, but we growed our booth because we've growed everything here at Carolina Lake Weights, guys. Come by and definitely check us out. And we're going to have a lot of great products there, some cool swag. Of course, we're going to have a bunch of drifting weights, pure lead drifting weights this year for sure. So hope y'all guys definitely come by and check it out. We're gonna release this new hat also at CatCon, guys. And of course, I think right now, yeah, we're gonna have some slime show hats if they're not sold out already. We only had 2 left after today. But I also want to say, guys, if y'all don't have us on YouTube, go check us out at Carolina Lake Weights on YouTube. We have a lot of fun over there, and check us out, subscribe, watch a video.
Tommy, drift socks. I use a 54 Lindy Fisherman with no wind. That's pretty big sock for a lot of guys, but for my boat, it's for no wind. And then I use the 78s. Mine are the old Cabela's, but they still sell 78s at Bass Pro. They're just a canvas style. The ones I'm running are a parachute style. They're just they stop the boat. So, but I run 54s and 78s, and then I got a 10-foot Easterland for when it's really nasty wind. Chris Garcia, RS Net. If you need an RS Net, you can get me some money, and I will freaking get you one at CatCon at a dramatically decreased price. They are one of my sponsors. We don't get discount codes to give out, but I can get you one for probably quite a bit cheaper at the show.
I'll
and then
definitely
instead
pick
of
up
you
one.
having to pay for shipping, now I'm not checking bags. So if you want me to get you one, it'll cost me probably $30 to check the damn thing. But I'll do it. I mean, they're expensive to ship. Like shipping, somebody told me what shipping was. I'm like, damn, it's expensive to ship something. It's an odd size package, so they're expensive to ship. But
I'm definitely gonna get me one, Chris, while I'm there. Also, it's time for a new one.
they're a great net, high quality. They can withstand being stepped on, not like an aluminum. Light. I got a lot of guys say, "Oh, I need a lightweight." I'm like, "Why?" So you can ruin it and step on it in 1 year, be destroyed. So, yeah, hit me up, Chris, and if you want, you can PayPal me while I'm at the event, and I can tell you exactly what the price of it's going to be, and then I'll know what it'll cost for me to check a bag when I get to the airport, because they'll ask me if I have a bag to check, and I'll ask them, what does it cost to check? Because I'm sure I'll have to check that net. They're freaking giant. And you guys that fly a lot know, but man, they charge you for everything. So I'm not checking bags, but if I want to check a bag, I think it's $30. So I'll just hit me up, dude. I'll get you one for everything at that show is dramatically cheaper. So when I say dramatically cheaper, if something's $250, it'll save you $80 or something at the show. Might even be cheaper because the guy that owns the company, he's one of my sponsors, so he might. I don't know. I don't have a great It's a weird deal. Another one of my buddies is like, he's like, man, RSNet's looking for a guy in Texas. I told him about you, and they gave me a net. I've never even talked to the guy since. I mean, I tag him in all my stuff. I tell people about the nets, but it's like, man, kind of weird deal. But they're from up in Indiana or somewhere. The nets are all made in the USA. They're heavy duty. They're the best quality nets I've found. So I used to run through them, man. They get stepped on the bottom of the boat or bent to hell, and then they don't want to work right. And I was going through one about every year. They're about $90 a piece, so they're not cheap nets, but they work good. The inshore net. All right. Well, when I get there to the show, I'll take some pictures and let you know what they got. I run the Catfish edition with the long telescoping pole because I need to get out there and get them behind the boat.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially help you around the drift sock or something like that.
Yeah. It really comes in handy out the back if you're dragging out the back like I do.
Another good crowd tonight, Chris.
Garcia runs 278s out the pontoon. Nashville, Tennessee CatCon. It's actually
Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky. And it's a good time, man. It's not just all about seeing catfish booths and products. I mean, you get to go talk catfishing all weekend. Who doesn't like to do that?
Man, that's always a lot of fun.
Oh, man. 20-foot pontoon. You're going to need 78s. I would say a couple of 78s for most applications. Big wind, you're going to probably want that 10-foot Easterland.
Yep.
Not going to be one size fits all because 10-mile-an-hour wind's going to be different than 20-mile-an-hour wind. Now, over 20, you're not going to want to be on a pontoon boat. It's a wet fishing experience, but glad to help, Owen. Hopefully it helps you, buddy. Appreciate you coming in and tuning in. Appreciate all you guys. It's always fun every week. It's a good time getting the chance to talk catfishing with you boys. So.
That's why we love doing this, man. We definitely enjoy it.
Yeah, Chris, I turned the trolling motor around a lot to slow me down. I did it a lot last Saturday, keep me at 0.4. I didn't have my planter boards weren't spread at all, but I was catching fish and nobody else was catching them around me. They were all hauling ass. We were in 4-foot rollers, man. It was windy and big waves, and fish didn't want to cooperate too good. But we got them figured out enough to do well. We got a couple 40s, couple 30s, I think 320s, and a handful of teiners and smeaters.
Scott, if you've never used one, brother, I'm going to tell you, it will make a world of difference, man. It really will, brother.
You never use a drift socks, Scott? You got to get one. You got to have the right speed if you really want to get them dialed in for each different day. So
yeah, it definitely matters a lot.
Typically you're around 0.5, but when I say around 0.5, 0.4 could be the speed, 0.5 could be the speed, 0.6 could be the speed. So
hell, even 0.3 before.
Oh, I do 0.3 a lot. And previous years with no wind, I'm going 0.3. This year, I'm going 0.6. I'm going twice as fast as I normally go with no wind this year.
Yep.
Scott's boat is 22 feet. It also depends on what type of boat you got. Is it a shallow draft boat, like a shallow water bay boat? They move fast on the lake. You need to have something that'll grab and slow you down. I got a heavy bay boat. I'm buoyed down in the water, so I do have a big silhouette with the T-top and all that. But, you need a variety of socks to get you to the speed that they're wanting it at. If you're really wanting to dial them in. Well, Jamie done.
I'm ready for next Wednesday night, brother.
Yeah, we got to come up with a show. I guess we'll wait till how the fishing goes. We got another big polar front on the way. It's coming. It's going to hit everybody, right?
Yeah. Actually,
All the
next
way over there
Wednesday.
on the East Coast, y'all getting hit, right?
Yeah, actually, next Wednesday, if we get hit, it will be next Wednesday. So it could be right now. I think the percentage is between 50 to 60%. We could be looking at anywhere right now from 2 to 4 inches. But they said,
Okay. I didn't
it's
see
still
the
kind of far out.
forecast, but I did see high 30, low 19, low 18, 3 days in a row. It's about 5 or 6 days, not really getting much above freezing.
That's it. And y'all know how it is. The weather that far out, it could go either way. I mean, they could predict snow today and not get it, but it's going to be cold. I can tell you that.
It'll be
It's going to
cold.
be cold. Yeah.
Precipitation they can't ever get right. But
Yeah.
Garcia says, Jamie, what are those wave things called for the Sea Arc?
Wave Whackers. It's a company out of Minnesota. Wave Whackers is the name of them.
Damn, Scott says it was 9 degrees there this morning. Now that's too freaking cold.
I'm crawling back underneath the covers. I can tell you, Chris, that it's the best investment I've ever put on my boat, brother.
Chris Stewart says he's coming in late, but will love to hear some advice on finding and catching bait, one of his biggest issues. Well, Chris, right now, bait's pretty deep. Advice I would say is you need a deep water tape net to get them. You can probably get some shallow, but it's going to be hard. But they're pretty easy to get deep. So you're looking most places in Texas, it's going to be 40 feet, right around 40 feet. Could be 30 feet one day. Could be a little deeper one day, but you're looking in that general area. It's going to be somewhere around the main river channel, or any type of intersecting structure that's close to that. Wind's going to push them and move them around from day to day, so it could be up in a pocket, but I would still be fairly deep. You can use the channel to move up and down the lake to look for them, and if you've got structure that's close by, you can kind of move to that for your bigger baits if you're looking for giant baits. But that's right now, bait is much easier, but you got to have a deep net, and you need a deep water tape net. It's a heavy net with tape. That's going to be able to get you down to that to where they're at. Now, I marked some up in 25 feet, but they were really thick in 40 feet. And they're going to stay deep till mid-February. They'll be deep. So maybe late February. Scott, I throw a 7-foot Phytech 11970. It's a 1.5 pounds per foot, 5/8 mesh, taped net, 50-foot hand line. That's my net of choice. I throw that deep most of the year. Anytime, Chris. I guarantee you, if you do that, you use that channel, and you find that comfort zone, it could be anywhere from 30 to 50 feet. Now, you can't get bait deeper than 50 because the hand line's not long enough, but 25 to 40 feet right now, probably somewhere in that. Dan says Michael Spivey at Tawakoni sells a good taped net. He does. He's got a new tape. He's got a taped net that he's selling. I think it's 1 pound per foot. Don't know the mesh size. It might be 1 inch, but I don't know the price either. So I haven't used his nets, but I see a lot of guys buying them. Well, Jamie Dunn, what are you cracking open over there?
I'm filling the old cup back up. It's gonna be another late night here in the shop, so got to stay warm.
All right, guys. Appreciate y'all stopping in, spending some time. I brought my nets pre-taped, Chris. So you can make your own, but I mean, a lot of guys used to do that, but I just buy mine pre-taped. Yeah, you can make them your own. Get you some Gorilla tape or whatever, tape them. It's just a lot of them aren't heavy enough, so you want it to get down fast because big baits will move out from under the net. If it's not getting down fast enough, and if you're real deep and it's not taped, it closes up. So you need the weight to get it down quick, and then you need the tape to keep it open.
Yep. And before we get off, Chris, I want to say, guys, if y'all need anything between now and before we leave for the shows, go check us out at CarolinaLakeWeights.com. Go ahead and load up on some great catfishing stuff. Pre-tied rigs, drifting weights, hooks, whatever you need. We are loading the trailer up and getting ready to hit the road shortly, guys. So go over and check us out, y'all.
Appreciate you guys. Tight lines. God bless. Azul out.
Later,
yes,
y'all.
1.5 pounds is real heavy, but it makes all the difference for big baits. Big baits will swim out from under your net. So that's why they 1.5 pounds per foot. You can use a 1, but you're going to be missing out on some of your biggest baits when you do that because they see that net coming. So, all right, boys. Tight lines. God bless. Azul out.